Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'm going to be answering one of my most frequently asked questions, that being, how can you tell if you've been cursed? Witchcraft scares a lot of people, particularly those that fall outside of the magical community. But there are some things that even members of the magical community are concerned and fearful of, and one of those is curses. So today we're going to be talking about several different things surrounding curses. What a curse is, how likely it is to happen, how you can tell if you've been cursed, the other things that might be causing it, and how you can resolve it for yourself. So hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a little bit more knowledge of what to look out for and how to fix it. The first thing I want to talk about is what a curse is. What is the definition of it? For many people, a curse is a piece of negative or baneful magic that has been sent towards them by a witch or magical practitioner, usually via spell work and ritual, that is designed to cause them harm either physically, mentally, or spiritually. This is something that most people would consider a curse to be, but in my experience, that isn't the only definition. For me, as someone within the magical community, a curse is the negative response to negative influence. And it can be caused by so many things and give very similar symptoms and side effects. The reality is that a curse sent by another magical practitioner is fairly uncommon, mostly because it takes a huge amount of energy and time. It also requires a lot of anger, annoyance, and dedication in order to maintain that working long term. And also, the practitioner runs the risk of getting backlash and negative influence from the spell that they've cast, because people have protections. Even if they aren't members of the magical community, they will likely have spirit guides, ancestors, and also maybe their own religious beliefs that are going to offer them protection from baneful magic. So for the most part, curses cast by a magical practitioner are actually pretty uncommon, though they can happen. There are, however, lots of other things that can give you the impression that you're cursed, even if you aren't. So let's talk about some of the signs and symptoms that you might experience if you are surrounded by this negative or cursed energy. Now, these things as standalone events don't necessarily mean that you've been cursed. People will have periods of bad luck and misfortune in their life. That doesn't mean you are the subject of a curse. However, if you are experiencing many of these things all at once with no other rational explanation, it's then time to start considering a magical cause. I will also say at this point that there are some things in this list that can be caused by medical conditions, and I would always recommend, if you are suddenly experiencing or even gradually experiencing any of the things on this list that could be caused by physical or psychological ailments, please do make sure you get that checked out before you assume that you're cursed. Always cover the mundane bases first before you move to the magical. The first thing that you might experience is that everything in one aspect of your life starts going wrong. And I don't just mean a little bit wrong. I mean really, really wrong. Like everything in that department of your life is turned upside down and inside out. Nothing seems to go your way. And it's probably going to be just one aspect of your life. This could be your love life, your friendships, your family relationships. It could be your finances. There are many different areas that this can happen in, but it usually targets one specific area. For instance, if it were to hit your finances, you might find that out of the blue, you're fired from your job. They don't give you any reason, any explanation, and you can't figure out what it is that's caused them to let you go. Not only that, but your car breaks down, your phone screen smashes, you immediately have to pay way more insurance than you ever thought you would have to before, your dog suddenly needs to go to the vet. Everything around you is suddenly breaking or costing you money, and you cannot for the life of you seem to get a job interview that goes well. It doesn't matter what you do, you can't find work, and everything is costing you more and more and more money. And I'm not talking about just a few pounds here and a few pounds there, I'm talking about sudden, large, unexpected bills, things going disastrously wrong, and it's causing your finances to plummet. These could all be signs of some kind of curse-like energy that's targeting specific aspects of your life. And I do say specific aspects because more often than not, this kind of negative energy is going to influence certain aspects more than others. especially if it's been sent by another magical practitioner. They're usually going to target an aspect about you that they don't like, they're envious, or they're jealous about. So that could be your work, it could be your romance, it could be your friendships, it could be your family, your home, whatever it might be. It's probably more often than not going to target one specific aspect, though in some instances you can find that this is more of a universal problem, and that's often when it's caused by another source. The next thing you might notice are vivid nightmares, and I mean terrible nightmares. Usually these are going to repeat themselves frequently, so every night you will either have the exact same nightmare where you're in the same place doing the same thing. It's a bit like Nightmare Groundhog Day, where you're just constantly repeating it every time you go back to sleep. That is a really big sign that something spiritually isn't quite right. Another sign of this is that every time you dream, even if the dream is different and it's seemingly a nice dream, you're going to have a shadowy form or figure that is going to follow you no matter where you go in that dream. They're trailing you every step you take. This could be a person that you recognize, and if you're very psychically developed, you might find that your subconscious is giving you the information about who is doing this. So if you recognize the person, that could be the person that's causing this. It could also not be, so just bear that in mind. Make sure you do additional divination if that's the case. But it could also be a shadowy figure, something that is similar to a shade or a small dark shadow, usually without any features. In some cases, it will represent something that is scary to you. So if, for instance, you're really scared of spiders, you might find that there is a giant spider that is following you through all of your dreams. If you really don't like clowns, it could be a shadowy clown that's following you around. It's usually something that your subconscious is going to associate as being negative, and it's going to be there all of the time. No matter what you do, you cannot shake it. And even if the dream itself is seemingly positive, this dark, shadowy figure is going to be there all of the time. In terms of dreams, they don't have to be nightmares and they don't have to be scary. In some cases, you might have a family member, a loved one, or simply someone in your dream telling you a warning. They are giving you information that you need to go off. This could be simply a voice that appears to you. It could be this feeling of knowing. It could be someone directly telling you in that dream. But they're usually going to be giving you a warning of some kind, and that warning is going to come to you every single time you go to sleep. And that warning might get more and more extreme the longer you leave it without doing something about it. So to start off with, it might be someone just tapping you on the shoulder. You turn around, there's no one there. In a couple of weeks or even a couple of months, it could be someone that you recognize, literally shaking you, telling you to wake up. It's going to get gradually more extreme as time goes on, especially if it is an ancestor or a spirit guide that's trying to let you know something isn't right, which is why I think it's really useful as a magical practitioner to take note of your dreams. Keep a dream journal around, because it's particularly hazardous if you don't remember your dreams. You might find that you're getting signs and symptoms of this kind of negative energy in your dreams, but if when you wake up you immediately forget them, you cannot act on that in your waking life. So I would recommend always, as a magical practitioner, have a dream journal of some kind. It's going to be incredibly useful, not only in this instance, but also in many other aspects of magical practice as well. Something you may notice in your waking life is that you are constantly followed by a bad smell. Now, depending on what it is that's influencing you, this smell is going to vary. So it's going to be something that's probably not very nice. If it is something demonic in nature, it's going to be sulfurous, so it's going to smell like rotting eggs. But if it's just something magical and energetic and not something that's demonic, it's going to smell either sickeningly sweet, like overwhelmingly nauseatingly sweet, or it's going to be a smell that you really don't like, something that seems to follow you around everywhere. It's at home, it's at work, it's while you're walking to work, it's in your car, and you cannot find a cause of it, and often you will be the only person that can smell this, you or your close family and friends. This is one, though, that I would recommend going to see a doctor if you do experience it, to make sure that there isn't a physical, mundane cause that's causing it. Make sure that you clean everything in your space thoroughly. Make sure that you clean your shoes, clean your clothes, clean your car. Make sure that it isn't something physical first. But if the doctor says that there's nothing wrong with you, and if you can't find a physical cause of this smell, and if it's accompanied by other negative things in your life, such as everything going wrong with your job, and also nightmares where you're being followed followed by a shadowy figure, it could be showing you that something more is going on here. Just please make sure you get it checked out first. The next symptom are illnesses. These could be a series of short illnesses. They could be sudden, out of the blue, long ailments. Of course, if you have children or you're around a lot of people, you are going to get sick, probably more than someone who works from home and who doesn't interact with a lot of people. But if you're suddenly experiencing a lot of physical ailments and illnesses that you have never experienced before, and there's no real reason for that to be happening, it could be a sign that something else is going on. But as with the last point, please make sure you get this checked out first. Do not ever assume that a physical ailment or an illness is magical related unless you have evidence to show that there is nothing physically wrong with you. Make sure you get this checked out first, but as before, if it is accompanied by the other things in this list, it could be something to look out for. Next up, you may find that spirit activity surrounding you and in your home is going to increase a huge amount. If you're used to very mild spirit activity, it's going to go through the roof. If you experience no spirit activity, all of a sudden it's going to start out of nowhere. Now, I do have a video on why your home is haunted. I will link it in the description box so that you can double check whether it's caused by anything else in your home. But if there's no reason why this should be happening and it's accompanied by other things, it could be a sign of something spiritual and magical that's attached onto you. Sometimes this haunting spirit activity is going to come in the form of poltergeists. Things being moved, thrown around, disturbed, loud noises, bangs, things that are keeping you awake at night. Now, do make sure it's not a wild animal that's in your house or a pet or something, but if you don't have any animals and you know that it's not a wild animal, it is something to watch out for. So not only could it be poltergeists, it could be spirits that are trying to communicate with you, that can see that something is around you and they want to warn you about it. So not all spirit activity is going to be malicious and negative. Sometimes they're going to try to be helpful. So keep an open mind, make sure that you're observant, acknowledging what's going on and paying attention to it. Because yes, sometimes it could be very negative, but sometimes it could be the spirits that are around you that are trying to tell you something. And if you're dismissing them and you keep banishing them, that's not going to help you either. So just make sure you keep an open mind, take notes of what's happening, see if you can find any patterns that might give you more information. The last thing is a little bit on the nose, but it's going to be useful if you are concerned about someone sending magic at you. So a specific person is targeting you. Often they're going to require a tag lock. A tag lock is an item that represents you. It could be a personal effect, a signature, a bit of your hair, nail clippings, a photograph of you. These things all represent you and can be used to target you in spells and rituals, both for positive and for negative. So if you find that your work hairbrush has suddenly gone missing and there's no reason for it to be missing, and then all of your finances suddenly go down the drain, that's a real big red flag. Someone might be using your hair and your hairbrush as a personal effect to attach a working onto you. It could also be that things are going missing because of the spirit activity in your space, and it's a good idea to look at what is going missing and trying to find any patterns that might link them together. The last thing to look out for are things that are appearing at your place of work or your home. I'm not talking just any old item either, so we're not talking feathers and we're not talking bones. We're talking very specific items that have been manufactured. So things like bottles, jars, bags, pieces of paper that have been bound with symbols on them. These kind of things are what we're specifically focusing on. Now, one of the main reasons why these might be brought to your location is if a magical practitioner doesn't have a tag lock that represents you. So oftentimes you can do remote workings as long as you have something that represents the target or the person that you're aiming that working towards, for positive or for negative. But if you don't have an item that represents them included in that working, it can be a little tricky for the energy to find its target. And so what often happens is that the person will place that object on your property, and by attaching it to the property, then it manages to manifest into your life. So if you find anything strange like that, that could also be a bad sign. But please remember, people do prank people. And as mentioned earlier, it's pretty uncommon for you to be cursed by a magical practitioner. Usually, people don't want to spend that much time on you. If they want to better their own life, they're going to do workings on themselves. They're not going to spend days, weeks, even months of their life negatively impacting yours. So it is quite an unusual occurrence, but it can happen, and that is something to look out for. So those are a lot of the symptoms that I have personally seen when talking to people about curses and the negative influence of them. There are probably others out there, but these are the ones that I have seen more often than not, and at least a few of them will crop up. So if you just have nightmares, that doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. But if you are experiencing an increase in spirit activity, you're also having warnings in dreams, you're having a shadow follow you in dreams, you're suddenly very restless and you can't sleep properly and you're getting ill, and you're also experiencing aspects of your life that are falling apart at the seams, that could mean something is impacting you and you're going to want to move forwards with that. Even if you're experiencing all of the things on this list, it doesn't mean that a curse has been sent at you by a witch or magical practitioner. There's actually lots of things that can cause these curse-like symptoms, and knowing what's caused it can make it a lot easier to remove it and to ease the symptoms that you're experiencing. So first up, we have the classic, a witch or magical practitioner has sent a curse at you. This is usually going to be someone that you know. It's quite unusual for it to be someone that you don't know, unless someone that you know has specifically hired a magical practitioner or a witch to cast a curse upon you. Often, whichever area of your life they're in is the area they're going to be targeting. So for instance, it could be an ex-partner who doesn't want you happy romantically. It could be one of your partner's ex-partners who wants to negatively influence your romantic life. It could be someone at your work that was going for the same promotion as you, and you got it and they didn't. Oftentimes, it's going to be someone that's close to you. And usually they'll have done this because of competition, jealousy, or frustration. It's usually one of these very consuming emotions that will have pushed them into doing this, or into hiring someone to have done this. Sometimes though, it isn't a magical practitioner. Sometimes it's someone who's done this completely accidentally. For many people, this is known as the evil eye. It is essentially a negative gaze that has been cast upon you, usually because of jealousy or envy. And this is also going to target the specific area of your life that that particular person is envious or jealous about. Oftentimes though, the person who's done this has no idea that they've done this. It's not something that they've actively carried out. It's something that's happened subconsciously. And so it can be really difficult to pinpoint who it is, because oftentimes it will be someone you don't know. It might be someone you walked past in the supermarket or someone you sat by on the bus. It could be someone who passed in and out of your life within seconds, and you're never going to know exactly who they were. It could also be someone that you know directly, but that is a little bit more uncommon. The next thing it could be is a servitor or a familiar spirit. Now, oftentimes this is done inadvertently, but it can be done actively as well. For those of you who don't know, familiars and servitors are spirits that are connected to a magical practitioner. A servitor is a spirit that has been specifically made by a magical practitioner for a purpose. This could be an all-purpose servitor, it could be a protection servitor, it could be a servitor to improve in love or communication. They're created for a purpose and are controlled by the magical practitioner. A familiar is a spirit that has entered into a contract with a magical practitioner and will offer them aid when they ask for it, usually for something in return. Now, in some cases, a magical practitioner may have sent their servitor or familiar spirit to cause you harm instead of doing a curse against you. So technically, it's pretty much a curse, but it isn't energy that's been sent at you, it's a spirit that's been sent at you. Sometimes, however, this can be done inadvertently. So if a magical practitioner has a very strong emotional response to you or a situation that you are a part of, they may inadvertently send their familiar or their servitor at you without even realizing that they've done it. And this can often happen when a magical practitioner feels threatened or feels the need for protecting themselves. That servitor or familial spirit will respond aggressively, and it's usually not a purposeful act. It's an emotion that they felt that they didn't control, and the servitor or their familiar responded to it. If you yourself are a magical practitioner, in some cases it could be self-inflicted. Now, I know that no one wants to think that their curse is self-inflicted, but it happens a surprising amount, and in the majority of the people I've spoken to about curses who've experienced it themselves, it's something that they've done that's essentially caused a curse on themselves. Now, this can happen in a few different ways. Firstly, backlash. I've spoken about backlash before. Some practitioners don't believe it exists. I've experienced it personally, and I know too many people who have experienced it to second guess whether it exists or not. But typically this happens when you've targeted a working at a person who has protections, and some of that working bounces back onto you again. It doesn't necessarily have to be disastrous. It could be just a little bit of that energy is ricocheted back at you again, and now it's negatively impacting your life. It could also be that when you've undertaken a spell or ritual for someone else, you haven't released all of that energy and instead it's stuck to you. Now this often causes upset in your life, and it's usually completely unexpected. So for instance, if your friend came to you and they really wanted something to shake them out of the funk that they're in, they wanted change, progress, movement in their life, and you cast a spell either at them or around them for that particular working, if anything bounces off them and back at you again, or if you haven't released all of that energy and some of it's still stuck to you, you're also going to experience some of that shaken up energy. Suddenly, your relationship is falling apart, you've lost your job, your car is broken down, you've been forced to move. This might feel like a curse, when in reality, it's just the energy that your friend wanted, but you've been stuck with some of it. So while they're living their best life, progressing forwards in the way that they wanted, your life is suddenly falling apart. And it's not because you've been cursed by another person. It's because the energy that was meant for them is stuck to you, and now it's negatively impacting you. All of this can feel a lot like a curse, especially if it's going to severely negatively impact your life. If you are happy and settled and comfortable in a relationship and your friend really wants to open communication back up with an ex, some of that energy gets stuck onto you. You might find that it's your ex that comes knocking on that door and starts disrupting your family environment. That's going to feel pretty awful, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a curse, and it is a really easy fix. Sometimes these curse-like symptoms can come from spirit attachments, things that have attached onto you or onto objects within your home, and that is also a pretty easy fix as well, though it does feel really scary at the time. It could also come from negative energy that you've not cleansed out of your space. Arguments and disagreements within the home, frustrations and anger can stick to you and can cause a lot of unrest and unease. This can feel like a curse, but it's simply stagnant energy that's stuck around longer than it needed to. And then lastly, the answer that is probably the least satisfying of them all. Sometimes people just have bad luck, and that doesn't mean that you're cursed. Luck is like a pendulum. It always balances itself out. You're going to have times of good luck, and then you're going to have times of bad luck. It doesn't mean that you're cursed when you're experiencing bad luck. Sometimes it will just pass on its own. And one really easy way to figure out what it is that's influencing you is to undertake divination. Now, divination can be carried out in lots of different ways. It can be done through pendulums, tarot, oracle, ogham, runes, bibliomancy, tasseomancy. There are so many options. Choose whatever you feel most comfortable with, ideally something that you can have a detailed response with. So if you're going to use a pendulum, try and use a pendulum board with letters, numbers, and the like on it. It will give you much more detailed responses. This is designed to connect to your subconscious, your higher self, or to ancestors and to spirit guides. This is especially significant if you have been experiencing dreams where you have someone telling you to be careful or giving you warnings, or spirit activity where it's clear that someone is trying to send you a message to help you. This can be really useful to figure out what's going on. You're going to want to ask a series of questions. Don't just ask, "Am I cursed?" and take that as a black and white answer. It's not a good idea. Instead, you're going to ask several different questions, and each question needs to be taken as part of the larger whole. This way you can get a deeper understanding of what is going on. So you might start with a general reading that's an overview of your life. Take note of anything there that is a little untoward, things that aren't meant to be there. Some cards perhaps, or maybe some runes, or some answers, names for instance, that are coming out to you that really shouldn't be part of your life. Then you're going to ask about negative influences. See what comes up there. If you're using tarot, you might find there's a few archetype cards that come up, some major arcana that are going to help indicate what is causing this, or perhaps who is causing this. And do not shut yourself down. It might say that it's you that's causing this, and you can do 1,000 other takes of that reading and it's going to keep saying that it's you. So if it's you, accept that it's you, try that first, and then do another reading later if that doesn't work. you're then going to want to ask what it is that's causing it. Now, this might be a really vague answer. You might get a name, you might get an archetype card, you might get pretty much nothing, but give it a try, see what comes back. You're then going to want to ask the areas of your life that it's influencing, see if that can give you some indication. And when you've really pinpointed down some answers, you might want to meditate on that. You might want to note it down, give it a few days if you can. Of course, not everyone's going to want a few days, to see if you can figure out what it means as a deeper answer. Because a lot of these individual answers are not going to give you the whole picture. They're a small part of the larger whole. And if you're lucky and it's given you some indication of what's going on, you can then tailor what you do next to suit. Now, of course, not everyone is going to get clear-cut answers, so I'm going to give some general techniques for resolving this for anyone who doesn't know specifically what it is. So you know that something is impacting your life, and it's not just a bit of misfortune. What do you do next? Well, there are some very basic steps that I would recommend anyone carry out if you don't know what it is that's causing it. This is really the first step you're going to take. And then you can get more detailed depending on how much you know about the situation, whether you know what's causing it, who's causing it, how it's being caused. These things are all really useful. So firstly, as a general port of call, I would recommend doing spiritual cleansings and then protections. Ideally, cleanse yourself, your clothes, your home, and all of the objects in your home. This is going to be time consuming, but it's worth covering all of your bases just in case. You can do something like a spiritual bath, a cleansing shower. You can do smoke-free cleansing or smoke cleansing. I will link the videos I've done in the description box if you do want to know more about it. Once you're done with the cleansings, it's time to put up protections. These are things that are going to stop the energy from continuing to influence you, whether that is a servitor, a familiar, energy that you've sent out that's backfired, or someone else's magical practice. Whatever it is, this is going to block it from further impacting you. Now, there's lots of different options. You don't need to do all of these. Just a few of them are useful. Ideally, something for personal protection and something for general or home protection. And if you have a vehicle, something for the vehicle as well could be really useful. You have super simple things like sigils and crystals. Crystals I would recommend are obsidian, smoky quartz, and black tourmaline. Typically, I would say cleanse them every week as a minimum, ideally every 2 to 3 days, as especially if you are the target of a spirit attack, this is something that's going to really impact those stones. So make sure that you cleanse them really, really frequently. This can be tumble stones. It can also be in jewelry as well. So that can give you an option for home protection and personal protection. You can then use salt, black salt, or protective herbs. These can be carried around in pouches, worn in lockets. They can be kept in pockets, or they can be put on windowsills, doorways, and other liminal spaces. Essentially the in-betweens, such as fireplaces, windows, doors, anywhere where things can come and go, including mirrors. That's also an important one. You may want to be carrying or owning protective charms or items. These could be religious, depending on your religious beliefs, such as crosses or pentacles, or they could be items of significance, such as iron, hagstones, and other such charms. These can be used as personal protection, and they can be worn as necklaces, jewelry, or carried around, or they can be kept within the home. You can then be burning protection candles, have protection poppets going, you can have protection spell bags, Rowan charms, which I do have a video on my channel. You can learn how to do personal protective shields, which is also a video I will link in the description box, and you can also do house protections such as larger house shields and wards. These are all good things to do. Another option is also to do scapegoat spells. These are a form of protection spell that act as a secondary you. They're essentially an energetic double, so that any workings that are aimed at you will instead go into the scapegoat. These include witches' bottles and witches' balls. These are really good as additional items. It sounds like a lot, but hopefully you'll find something in this list that you will have access to. Now, if you know what is causing it, this makes it a little bit easier to deal with. So depending on your culture and tradition, there are many things that protect against things such as the evil eye, often beads that are blue and they have concentric circles of blue, and these represent the evil eye and act as protection against it. They could be really useful, especially if you know that it's the evil eye. If it's something that you've cast upon yourself because a working has backfired or because a working hasn't been released properly, you're going to either want to have better personal protection so that the things that you've sent out can't come back again, or you're going to want to target objects, items, and situations rather than directly people. That's going to reduce the amount that it can come back onto you, and you're really going to want to practice your energy manipulation so that you can release all of that energy effectively. If it is a servitor or a familiar, there's not much you can do other than putting up your protections and waiting until the energy runs out, because at some point the energy probably will run out, or they'll figure out that what they're doing isn't achieving much and they will return back to their magical practitioner. If it is a spirit, you'll often find that doing the cleansing of the objects in your home is enough. But if it isn't, and you can figure out which item it is that is haunted or has that spirit attachment, you can do a banishing to remove them. And if you're planning on doing this, find a banishing spell, adapt it to fit your situation, and then I would recommend doing things in a set order. Cleanse, banish, cleanse, protect. That way nothing is going to get back in again. Make sure that you then have all of your protections up so that you can progress forwards. If it is bad luck, however, sometimes you just have to take it and accept that things are going to balance out again in the end. You can sway your good luck a little bit by carrying items that represent good fortune, having a horseshoe on your house, for instance, carrying crystals or herbs that are associated with good fortune, but do remember that the pendulum of luck will always balance itself out. So if you get yourself out of the bad luck now, that doesn't mean you're not going to have it later. It's just going to come back at a different point. So it could be worth just sucking it up and dealing with it temporarily. So I hope this video was useful to anyone who was curious about this topic or is concerned about this happening to them right now. If anyone has been through this before, feel free to let us all know in the comments section how you experienced it, how did you identify it, and what did you do to resolve it. There are lots of different techniques out there, and obviously I'm not going to personally undertake all of them, so it's going to be interesting to see how other people experience it and what they did. I apologize for the length of this one. Unfortunately, I couldn't fit this much information into a really short video, so I hope that you can tolerate the sheer extent of this content. But if you did like it, I would really appreciate it if you let me know by liking this video, commenting, or sharing it. It really does mean a lot, especially if you know someone who might be experiencing these problems themselves and is really concerned about it. I'm hoping that this will be really helpful. If you do enjoy the magical content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I try to post magical content every single week, and I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're having a marvelous magical day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Oh my god, I've been filming for an hour and a half. I didn't realize. I thought, oh, this video is going to be so quick. I wrote like a little script out, and this is the script, and I thought, oh, it's going to be quick. That's nothing. I've had bigger scripts than that. And then I sit here, and I just can't stop talking. I have no idea how long that's going to be. Oh dear. Oh no. Yeah, oops, sorry. It's kind of too light outside. Oh no. That is no better. And you can see it. That's not what I want. Okay, can you still see it? Yeah, you can still see it. Okay, what about now? Ah! My light nearly just crashed to the floor. Okay. That light is just wrong, though. How about now? Ah, it's the wrong color. You can see the shadow. What if I sit a little further this way? What about now? No. Now. It's kind of getting to the point where it's gonna have to be fine because I'm fed up of messing with it. Okay, take goodness knows how many. We're on take like 12 already. I've not even said anything and I'm already on like take 12.